Hey everybody, fitness and finance, they're both so related. So about 3 or 4 months ago, we were traveling a little bit and we stopped off at some local gym and there was this elderly man there. He was working with a trainer and they weren't doing like bicep curls and shoulder presses. They were just doing stability and balance stuff. You know, the trainer was like, sit down on the bench, stand up, sit down on the bench, stand up, stand on one leg, stand on the other leg, balance, stability. And after the workout, we both happened to be in the locker room at the same time. And I said, hey, how was your workout? And he kind of made a face and he was like, have to do it though. And he said, I'm so glad to see so many young people in the gym. I'm 38, so I don't feel that young. But to this dude, he said he was 76 years old. And I said, so what, you know, he was like, I'm just kind of starting. And I was like, so what got you into the gym? And he's like, I'm not into the gym. I hate it. I don't want to be here. But a year earlier, I had a heart attack. He's like, I have kids, I have grandkids. And it was just getting harder and harder for me to play with them, to see them, to get down on the floor and play with my grandkids. And I just don't have the endurance anymore. I'm tired all the time. They come to visit and I get anxious because I can't do any of these things. And he's like, I don't want to die. I want to live. I want to live. I'm starting now. I wish I had started when I was younger. I'm so glad to see so many young people doing that. And at the end, when I left and I was walking out to my car, the only thing I could think of was money. How his story reminded me of finance and investing. And all of the takeaways, I was sitting in the car and I was just, my mind was racing about finance and fitness and how they're so intertwined. And yes, we can talk about health as well. That's the popular thing, you know, you can invest and have millions of dollars in retirement. And people go, well, I don't want that money when I'm 80. I want it now. But man, the more you live below the means and the more you invest, the sooner you can retire. The retirement doesn't have to mean 75 or 80. It can mean 50s if you play your cards right. If you don't buy into this whole narrative of like, I need the cool car to impress strangers on the internet, or I need to live in the fancy home and have the fancy clothes and the gadgets and the tech and all these fancy expensive things. I'm a minimalist. I live very below my means. As a result, I'm going to be retired long before everyone else. Even though I'm driving the same shitty car, they're in a Mercedes or a Range Rover and they feel good about themselves now. You ask them, how much are you investing? And they're going to go, oh, I'm not. I mean, I know so many people who have Cadillacs and Range Rovers and Mercedes and BMWs. And I go, what's your car payment? Oh, $1,200, $1,500, maybe it's $900 if they got pre-owned. And I go, how much money are you putting in Roth IRA? They go, what's a Roth IRA? How much money are you putting in dividend stocks? So I don't know. I don't stock market. No. I'm just going to say I save a little bit. And, you know, that freaks me out. But anyway, tangent, I'm going to get back to the fitness relation to fitness and finance and how interconnected all of these things really are. In fact, everything that we do in the gym mimics kind of what we do with our investment portfolio. Think about diversity, right? You get to the gym, you try different things, you do different things, right? We all have different goals at the gym. Most of us want to get like some more muscles or get in better shape, but there's lots of other areas, right? We have cardiovascular, we have balance, we have stretching and mobility. We want to get stronger. We want to get maybe a little bigger. Maybe we want to get a little smaller and lose a little, whatever it is. We have a diversified approach in our fitness. I mean, I walk into the gym, I don't just go and grab the 90-pound dumbbells. I grab those little resistance bands. I warm up. I warm up my hips. I warm up my hamstrings. I stretch. I get warmed up and get ready. Maybe I'll do some cardio on a stair climber. I get ready to then come downstairs and lift weights. That builds up my strength, my endurance. It comes from maybe some cardio from a stair climber. I stretch for mobility. Maybe I do yoga for back and core. So I have a diversified approach in my gym. Maybe I can mimic some of that in my investment portfolio. What's my investment portfolio? It's not, I don't just put all my money into Apple stock. I have a diversified fitness routine. I have a diversified investment portfolio as well. So I walk into the gym, diversity. Maybe Monday, Wednesday, Friday is weights. Tuesdays and Thursdays is cardio. Maybe after every workout I stretch a little bit. I do some balance work. Maybe we swim every now and again. Diversity. Finance, same thing. Like I said, I'm not just going in and grabbing the 90-pound dumbbells and doing chest press and then calling it a day. I have a diversified investment approach as well. I have my index funds, my dividends, my real estate investment trusts. I have individual stocks. I have dividend paying stocks, high growth tech stocks. And at the very top of my foundation, I talk about this all the time, the foundation of investing. My foundation is index funds. The next level in the foundation is ETFs that are diverse. So S&P 500 foundation. Second level is real estate investment trust, growth ETFs. I know real estate isn't really an ETF, but it's a similar concept. Gives me diversity, more diversity, but more niche specific. So dividends, tech, real estate. Above that, the next level of the foundation, we're getting smaller here, is individual stocks. It can be growth, it can be dividends, whatever. That's the third level. And the very, very top, the smallest part, speculative. That's a diverse portfolio. And I make sure I have all of that. Another similarity between fitness and finance is risk management. You're not going to walk into the gym, grab the 90-pound dumbbells, and just start repping out. You'll tear a muscle, you'll pull something, you'll hurt something, maybe you'll drop the weight on your foot. Anything can happen if you're not warmed up first. You understand risk management. You maybe want to deadlift a lot. You're not going to walk into the gym totally cold, put 500 pounds, and just start deadlifting. You'll tear a muscle, you'll pull something, you'll hurt yourself. What do? That's part of risk management. You get on a treadmill, you get on a stair climber, you get those resistance bands, you start warming up, getting the blood flowing. After you've got the blood flowing, maybe you do a little stretching to warm up a little bit further. Then you go and you put on some weights on the bar. You warm up with the bar first, then you put on 135 pounds, you do a couple deadlifts, just to get everything moving, warmed up so you don't tear something, injure something. Similar thing with fitness is risk management. Again, we talked about that pyramid. The smallest amount of your portfolio is what you're willing to risk the most. But that doesn't mean that you never look at it again. You buy the risk, you go on TikTok and someone goes, here's a penny stock that I think is gonna do well. Maybe you research it and go, oh, this looks interesting. I'll buy a little bit, small amount. Or you hear, hey, check out this cryptocurrency. Oh, okay, I'll buy this coin. Couple weeks later, maybe a couple months, maybe a year, you go look at it, you go, this isn't really working for me. You trim it, you cut it, you take that reserve capital, you move things around. Risk management. You only put in what you're willing to lose in the riskiest things. You don't put the most in the riskiest, you put the least. That's risk management. It's very similar to going to the gym, warming up, training, practicing, building and building and building until you get to a point where you're comfortable to put on 500 pounds or grab the 90-pound dumbbells. Another similarity to all of this, fitness, finance, are the long-term benefits. Think about that guy from the gym, 76-year-old. Think about that guy. He's 76. I got slippers on and it's a little hot. 76 years old. Can't bend over to play with his grandkids. Can't get on the floor, or he gets on the floor, he can't get back up. His balance is off. He's weak. This is a guy who's never exercised a day in his life until he's 76 and he goes, oh my God. The long-term benefits of exercising your whole life, eating well, taking care of yourself, pay dividends in retirement. Because now the 76-year-old can get on the floor and play with his grandkids like it's no problem. You watch two different grandparents. You watch the 76-year-old who's at the gym every day and who's been going, not just in the last year, but I'm talking the last 30 years, has been going to the gym. That 76-year-old isn't afraid, oh, what if I get hurt? A lot of old people don't want to go to the gym because what if I get hurt? What if they get hurt in their house because their balance is off and they slip? There's risks involved with everything, going back to risk management. Yeah, you might pick up a heavy weight at the gym and you're 70 and you hurt your elbow or you pull a muscle or whatever, but what's worse is not having the strength at home to walk up the flight of stairs, or the anxiety that if you trip, you fall down your flight, you break your hip. The risks, the rewards, come on. Long-term benefits of going to the gym when you're young pay off when you're old. The long-term benefits of investing when you're young pay off when you're old. This guy was saying to me, I wish I had done what you're doing. I wish I was in the gym when I was 30, because it's so much harder now. So much harder now at a 76-year-old just starting. And the similarity to fitness and finance is the amount of DMs that I get from people who just turned 60 and they go, hey, I've never invested. Is it too late? What do I do? What's the best move? Everyone's talking about index funds. I don't know. Look, The longer you wait to start investing, the harder it becomes. The more time you need, the more money you need. Things might not work in your favor. Maybe you start investing when you're 60 and a recession hits. What do? You've just lost all your money. As opposed to the person who started investing when they were 20. Now they're 60 and they're liquidating a lot of their riskier investments and they're putting that money in bonds and treasuries and CDs, things that are safer, because they've already made the money. They don't need to make the money anymore. They've already made the money over here. All this 20 to 60 was make the money, invest the money, make the money, build the business, save, invest, get passive income, rental properties, real estate investments, whatever. Now you've made the money from here to there to death. You've made the money all here. This is making the money. Now you're about preserving the money. As opposed to starting here, right? You start here, it's so much harder. Not just for the investor, but for that 76-year-old at the gym. Another similarity, and I'm gonna kind of wrap this up here a little bit because I don't want to ramble on too much. Although I do like this podcast approach a little bit more, since it's just me and I'm just sitting here. There's no graphics, there's no charts on the screen. It really is something that you can just put in the background and listen. So I kind of like this approach, so I don't feel too bad about rambling because we're just chatting here, we're just having a conversation, and we can keep it going in the comments below. But another similarity, fitness and finance, are trends. Trends are great, but it's the old school approach that almost always seems to work best. You know, all these gimmicky diets, all these gimmicky workouts. I found this old bodybuilding encyclopedia from when I was a little kid. I was really into Arnold because of Terminator and all those movies. And I saw his bodybuilding book at a bookstore when I was a little kid. It's like this thick. It's this huge gray book. And I begged my mom for it. And she bought me this book. It was like the Mr. Olympia training guide or whatever. Just the tried and true. You go to the gym, you lift the weights, you pick up heavy things, you put them down, you eat well, lots of protein. There's always these diets coming out. Eggs are good. No, wait, eggs are bad. No, wait, egg yolks are good. No, wait, egg yolks are bad. No, wait, it's the whites that are good. No, wait, it's always changing and gimmicky, and whatever gets the attention of the people who are watching the videos or reading the books or watching the infomercials late at night on TV. Gimmicks sell. Gimmicks promise you a lot, but it's really the tried and true. Just go to the gym, you chest press, your squats, shoulder presses, your rows. You're good. You come home, you have protein shake, you eat some chicken thighs, a little rice, some vegetables, you're good. But the gimmicks, oh, it's the grapefruit diet, oh, it's Slim Fast, oh, drink this, take these pills. I see the same thing in finance. I open up TikTok, it's buy this course, my secret blend of trading, my formula. How many videos? There's gonna be ads on this YouTube video, right? There's gonna be ads that pop up probably in the 8-minute mark of this video. An ad's gonna pop up and he's gonna say, don't buy stocks on this day, buy them on this day. Here's my secret formula for trading stocks. Simplify it. These are all gimmicks and they promise a lot. They sound really cool, but at the end of the day, trends come and go. You even see it in individual stocks. Like I'm talking about like Peloton, super trendy at a moment. And then it faded and everyone lost interest in it. Same with finance, fitness. Peloton is a great example because they're a finance and a fitness. There's so much to talk about on this topic, and I feel like I could make this like a 3-hour-long video, but I'll try to be brief and start wrapping it up here, even though I said I was going to wrap it up at the 11-minute mark, and now we're at the 14-minute mark. Compounding. Compounding is another great example of how fitness and finance are so interconnected. You compound. When you're young, you start investing dividend stocks, ETFs, real estate investment trusts. When you get dividends, you don't take that dividend and go buy groceries or pay for your electricity bill. You reinvest that dividend back into more stock. It's that snowball metaphor. You start off with this little teeny snowball at the top of the hill. You roll it. And by the time it rolls all the way down to the hill, it's this huge snowball. That's compounding. People always say, well, I'll get the dividend stocks when I'm old. I'll do that when I'm old. No. Heavier in tech when you're young, yes. But don't forget about the boring dividend stuff. Because you start with a little, and over time, gradually, as you get older and older, you start allocating more money into the safer, the more dividend-based things, and it grows and grows and grows, and your dividends reinvest and reinvest, and when you're old, you live off those dividends. Compounding in fitness, the exact same thing. You get stronger slowly over time, and by the time you're 76 years old, you can bend over and play with your grandkids, no big deal. The last one we'll talk about, and then I will wrap this up, is tracking your progress. You want to do it in fitness and in finance. You want to track your progress for both. When it comes to workout routines, it's always good to switch things up every now and again, right? You get used to it, your body gets complacent, you understand, you do the same lifts over and over, it's like kind of boring. Maybe you want to switch things up a little bit, maybe you want to switch the days you train or the exercises or the amount of reps, keep your body guessing, keep your body moving. You write it down. Here's what I'm doing this month, here's what I'm going to do for the next 6 months. At the end of the 6 months, you look at your notes, you look at yourself in the mirror, maybe you get on the scale, maybe you measure by the weights you're lifting, and you track your progress. This routine didn't really work for me. Maybe I'll tweak it, maybe I'll modify it, or hey, I really like this routine, I'm gonna keep doing it. Same with finance. Track what's going on. What worked? What didn't work? Were you maybe investing in more speculative stocks this year and it turned out not to work for you? Maybe you readjust. I've had so many old people come to me say, oh, our money manager said to us, I can outperform the markets. Well, we sat with him for 35 years and he never really outbeat the markets. We should have just gone with the index. Why didn't you readjust? Why didn't you track your progress and at the 4 or 5 year mark say, hey, I don't think this guy is working for us. Let's just stick with index funds or 70% index funds. And we can see if this guy with 30% can beat the markets because he doesn't have the track record. But nobody tracks progress. You gotta track progress. All right, everybody, 16, 17 minutes now. Thanks so much for watching. If you really like these kind of videos, let me know in the comments below. Keep it going as well in the comments below. Let's keep this conversation going. Let me know if you agree, you disagree. Hit the subscribe, the bell, the notifications. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I don't know why I said weekend because you could be watching this on a Thursday. Have a great day. Bye.